You walk into a room and you stop. You stand there in the doorway and you know you came in here for something. You can feel it. It was right there, right on the tip of your thoughts, and now it's gone. So you turn around, you walk back to the kitchen, and somewhere between the hallway and the refrigerator, it comes back to you. Scissors. You needed the scissors. And you laugh it off. Everybody does that, right? But then it happens again the next day, and the day after that. And one morning your daughter calls and tells you a story about something that happened at Thanksgiving, and you don't remember it at all. Not a piece of it. And that's when the laughter stops. That's when the fear creeps in quiet, like cold air under a door. I'm Dr. William, and I need to tell you something that could change the way you think about that fear, because what's happening in your brain when those moments hit is not what most people think. It's not your brain shrinking with age. It's not some inevitable countdown that you just have to accept and live with. What the research is now showing us, and I mean serious peer-reviewed research from Harvard, from Rush University, from Oxford, is that dementia, in a stunning number of cases, begins not with aging itself, but with inflammation. Silent, chronic, low-grade inflammation that starts in your gut, crosses into your bloodstream, passes through the blood-brain barrier, and slowly, over years, over decades, begins to dissolve the connections between your neurons, like rust eating through a bridge cable. They call it neuroinflammation, and it is the match that lights the fire long before you ever forget a name. Long before you ever stand in a doorway wondering why you're there. And here's what stopped me cold when I first started digging into this. The foods that fight this process the hardest, the ones that actually cross the blood-brain barrier and calm that fire at the cellular level, they're not exotic superfoods from the Amazon with a marketing budget. They're not sitting on a shelf at some high-end health food store with a $30 price tag and a celebrity endorsement. They are the exact foods that poor families across America and Europe ate every single day in the 1800s. Peasant food, farm food, survival food. The stuff your great-grandmother boiled in a cast-iron pot on a wood stove because it was all she could afford. And it turns out what she had was medicine, the most powerful brain-protective medicine we've ever studied. Today, I'm going to walk you through 12 of those foods, why they work, what they do inside your brain, and exactly how to prepare them so you get the full benefit. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss what's coming next week, because I'm doing a full video on the 3 warning signs that show up 5 years before a diagnosis. And leave me a comment. Tell me, what's the one food your grandmother swore by? I read every single one of those comments. Now let me explain what's actually happening, so the rest of this makes sense. Your brain has its own immune system. Most people don't know that. It's run by cells called microglia, and when they're working properly, they clean up damaged cells, clear out waste proteins, keep the neighborhood tidy. But when your body is in a state of chronic inflammation, those microglia go haywire. They stop cleaning and start attacking. They release inflammatory chemicals called cytokines that damage the very neurons they were supposed to protect. At the same time, a protein called beta amyloid, which your brain produces naturally and usually clears out during deep sleep, starts to clump together into plaques. Those plaques interfere with signaling between your brain cells. That's when you start forgetting what you walked into the room for. Your doctor probably hasn't explained this connection, not because your doctor doesn't care, but because in a 12-minute appointment there's no time to explain what happens inside your hippocampus 6 hours after breakfast. But that connection is real, it is measurable, and the foods I'm about to show you have been studied specifically for their ability to lower neuroinflammation, reduce beta amyloid accumulation, and protect the synapses that hold your memories together. The first food is bone broth. And I don't mean the stuff in a box at the grocery store. I mean real bone broth, the kind your great-grandmother made by roasting beef or chicken bones until they were dark brown and caramelized, then simmering them in water with a splash of vinegar for 18 to 24 hours until the liquid turned thick and golden and jiggled like jelly when it cooled. That jiggle is the key. That jiggle is gelatin, which is cooked collagen, and it contains an amino acid called glycine that is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory compounds your body can absorb. Glycine crosses the blood-brain barrier directly. It calms microglial activation. A study out of the University of North Carolina showed that glycine supplementation reduced neuroinflammatory markers in aging adults by a significant margin. But your grandmother didn't need a study. She knew that when someone was sick, when someone was confused, when someone couldn't think straight, you gave them broth. Families in the Appalachian Mountains kept a stock pot going on the back of the wood stove all winter long. They'd throw in whatever bones they had, chicken feet, ham hocks, oxtails, a knuckle of beef, and they'd ladle out cups of that liquid gold every morning before anyone ate anything else. The house smelled like it. That deep, savory, slightly mineral smell that wrapped around you when you walked in from the cold. That was medicine, and they knew it in their bones, if you'll pardon the expression. Here's how to do it right. Get 2 to 3 pounds of bones, beef marrow bones or a whole chicken carcass. Roast at 400 degrees for 30 minutes. Put them in a pot, cover with cold water, add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. That acid pulls the minerals out, and simmer on the lowest heat for at least 18 hours. Strain it. 1 cup every morning on an empty stomach, warm, with a pinch of sea salt. If it doesn't gel in the refrigerator, you didn't cook it long enough. That gel is the medicine. The second food is sardines, and I can already hear some of you groaning, but listen to me carefully. This tiny, cheap, overlooked fish is one of the most neuroprotective foods on the planet. Sardines are among the highest natural sources of DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, the primary structural fat in your brain. Your brain is roughly 60% fat by dry weight, and a huge portion of that is supposed to be DHA. When DHA levels drop, and they drop steadily after 50 if you're not actively replenishing them, your neuronal membranes become stiff and can't transmit signals efficiently. It's like trying to send electricity through a frayed wire. The Framingham Heart Study found that people with the highest blood levels of DHA had a 47% lower risk of developing dementia. 47%. And sardines were the food of the poor. Coastal families in Portugal, in Sicily, in the fishing villages along the coast of Maine, they ate sardines the way we eat chicken nuggets today, packed in salt, laid on dark bread, eaten straight from the tin with the bones and everything. Those soft bones, by the way, are loaded with calcium and phosphorus, which your brain also needs. Buy wild-caught sardines in olive oil. 1 tin 3 to 4 times a week, mashed on sourdough toast with a squeeze of lemon and some sliced raw onion. That's a meal that costs $2 and gives your brain more of what it needs than a $50 supplement bottle. The third food is sauerkraut, and this is where the gut-brain axis becomes impossible to ignore. Your gut and brain are connected by the vagus nerve, and when your gut microbiome is damaged, inflammatory signals travel up that nerve straight into your brain. Real lacto-fermented sauerkraut is one of the most concentrated sources of Lactobacillus plantarum, a strain shown in research at UCLA to reduce intestinal permeability and lower circulating inflammatory markers. German and Eastern European families ate sauerkraut every single day. They packed it into crocks in the fall and let it ferment in the cellar all winter. That tangy, alive, slightly sharp smell. 2 to 3 tablespoons daily with your biggest meal. The label must say raw and unpasteurized, containing only cabbage and salt. If it lists vinegar, put it back. That's pickled, not fermented. The fourth food is liver, beef liver or chicken liver. I know this makes some people uncomfortable, but liver is the single most nutrient-dense food that exists. 1 serving contains more bioavailable B12, folate, iron, copper, and vitamin A than almost any other food you could eat in a week. B12 is critical because B12 deficiency is one of the most commonly missed contributors to cognitive decline in older adults. A study at Oxford found that older adults with low B12 had 6 times the rate of brain volume loss compared to those with adequate levels. In the 1800s, liver was practically free, what the butcher gave you for pennies because everyone wanted steaks. Farm families fried liver with onions and butter for supper once a week, the iron smell of it hitting the hot skillet, the onions going sweet and brown around it. If you can't stand the taste, soak it in whole milk for 4 to 8 hours. The milk pulls out the bitter compounds. Then slice thin, dredge in flour with salt and pepper, fry in butter with caramelized onions. 4 ounces, twice a week. The fifth food is whole oats, steel cut or whole oat groats, the kind that take 30 to 40 minutes to cook, the kind your grandmother put on before dawn. Oats contain beta-glucan, a soluble fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, particularly Bifidobacterium longum, linked in recent research to improved cognition in older adults. They also contain avenanthramides, anti-inflammatory compounds found in almost no other food, shown to cross the blood-brain barrier and reduce oxidative stress in neural tissue. Scottish and Irish families lived on oats. Midwestern homesteaders ate them every morning. 1 cup of steel-cut oats cooked with water and a pinch of salt, topped with butter and berries, every morning. And pay attention to number 7, because what I'm going to tell you to add to those oats will triple their brain protective effect. The 6th food is beets. Beets are one of the highest natural sources of dietary nitrates, the natural kind that your body converts into nitric oxide, essential for cerebral blood flow. Your brain uses 20% of your total blood supply, and when that flow decreases, neurons don't get enough oxygen and glucose. A study at Wake Forest University showed that older adults who consumed beet juice daily had significantly increased blood flow to the frontal lobes, the areas responsible for executive function and working memory, exactly the functions that decline first. Farm families grew beets in root cellars and ate them all winter, roasted in the ashes of the fire, pickled, grated raw. That deep purple-red juice staining the cutting board comes from betalains, powerful antioxidants. 1 medium beet 4 to 5 times a week. Roast whole in foil at 375 for about an hour, or grate raw into your morning oats. Pause here for a moment. If you're still watching, I can tell you care about your brain. Share this with someone you love who might need to hear it. And keep watching, because number 7 shocked me the most when I found the research. The 7th food is rosemary, and I don't mean as a garnish. I mean daily, intentional, therapeutic use. Rosemary contains carnosic acid, studied at the Burnham Institute for Medical Research, which activates the NRF2 pathway in your brain, essentially telling your cells to produce their own internal antioxidants. It doesn't fight free radicals from outside like vitamin C. It turns on your body's own antioxidant production from the inside. Rosemary also contains rosmarinic acid, shown to inhibit beta-amyloid plaque formation. In the villages of southern Italy, in Acciaroli, a region famous for centenarians with intact cognition, researchers found daily rosemary consumption was a common factor. These farming families grew it in their gardens and put it in everything. That woody, warm, pine-like smell was the smell of their kitchens. Chop fresh rosemary fine and add 1 tablespoon to your morning oats with that grated beet. Or steep a sprig in hot water for 10 minutes and drink it as afternoon tea. Make it a daily ritual. The 8th food is walnuts, and I want you to do something the next time you crack one open. Look at it closely. Really look. 2 hemispheres, wrinkled surface, that thin membrane running down the middle like the falx cerebri that divides your brain's 2 halves. It's almost eerie how much a walnut looks like the organ it protects. Walnuts contain alpha-linolenic acid, the plant-based omega-3 your body partially converts into DHA, the same brain-building fat we talked about with sardines. But walnuts also contain something most nuts don't, a polyphenol called pedunculagon that your gut bacteria convert into a compound called urolithin A. And urolithin A has been shown in research at the Buck Institute for Research on Aging to promote mitophagy, which is your cell's ability to identify damaged mitochondria, clear them out, and replace them with healthy ones. Your brain cells are among the most mitochondria-dependent cells in your entire body. When their energy factories fail, they fail. In the 1800s, walnut trees grew wild across the eastern United States, and families gathered them by the bushel in autumn. They'd sit by the fire in the evening, cracking them, that satisfying snap of the shell, picking out the meats with a fork, the papery brown skin staining your fingers. Children did it as a chore. They didn't know they were preparing brain medicine. 14 walnut halves every single day. Don't remove the skin. That brown papery coating has the highest concentration of polyphenols. Add them to your morning oats. Eat them with a sliced apple in the afternoon, or just keep a bowl on the counter and grab a few every time you walk through the kitchen. The ninth food is turmeric, but not the way most people use it. Turmeric contains curcumin, one of the most studied anti-inflammatory compounds in nutritional science. UCLA's Longevity Center showed curcumin reduced beta amyloid accumulation and improved memory in adults with mild cognitive complaints. But curcumin alone is almost impossible to absorb. In India, they always combined turmeric with black pepper and fat. Piperine in black pepper increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%, and the fat carries it across your intestinal wall. Indian grandmothers cooked turmeric in ghee with pepper, that golden paste sizzling in the pan, the warm, musky turmeric mixing with nutty ghee that was functional medicine before the term existed. Every evening, warm 1 cup of whole milk or full-fat coconut milk. Add 1 teaspoon turmeric, a 1/4 teaspoon black pepper, half a teaspoon coconut oil, and a pinch of cinnamon. Drink warm before bed. Golden milk. One of the most neuroprotective rituals you can adopt. The 10th food is fermented cod liver oil, and this is the one that connects us most directly to our ancestors. Before vitamin supplements existed, before fortified milk and fortified cereal, families in Northern Europe and in the fishing communities along the New England coast gave their children and their elderly a spoonful of cod liver oil every single morning. They didn't know the word vitamin. They just knew that families who took it got sick less, their children grew stronger, and their old folks stayed sharper longer. We now know why. Fermented cod liver oil is one of the only natural food sources that contains meaningful amounts of both preformed vitamin A, which is retinol, and vitamin D3, along with a full spectrum of omega-3 fatty acids in their natural ratios. Vitamin D3 is critical for brain health because it regulates the expression of genes involved in neurotransmitter synthesis, neuronal growth, and the clearance of amyloid proteins. A massive study published in Neurology involving over 12,000 participants found that vitamin D deficiency was associated with a significantly increased risk of developing dementia. And most adults over 55 are deficient without knowing it because we don't spend enough time in the sun and we don't eat the foods that contain it naturally anymore. Half a teaspoon of fermented cod liver oil every morning with breakfast. Take it with food. The fermented form is important because the traditional lactofermentation process preserves the fat-soluble vitamins in their natural, bioavailable state rather than destroying them with the industrial heat processing used in most modern brands. If you've made it this far, hit that like button. Not for me, but because it tells the algorithm to show this to other people who are scared about their memory and looking for real answers. Tell me in the comments, which of these did your family eat growing up? The 11th food is dark bitter greens. Dandelion greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, collards. Not spinach, not mild baby greens. The tough, bitter ones your grandmother cooked down for hours with a ham hock. In the rural South, a pot of greens simmering all afternoon was as common as air. The pot liquor, that dark broth at the bottom, was considered the most nutritious part, and families soaked their cornbread in it. They were right. The Rush Memory and Aging Project found that people eating 1 to 2 servings of leafy greens daily had cognitive function equivalent to someone 11 years younger. The key compounds are lutein, which crosses the blood-brain barrier as a neural antioxidant, folate for DNA repair, and camphorol, which suppresses the inflammatory cytokines we discussed earlier. 1 large serving daily. Cook in olive oil with garlic and vinegar, or the old way, low and slow with smoked pork. Drink every drop of that pot liquor. The 12th food ties everything together. Apple cider vinegar, raw, unfiltered, with the mother, that cloudy mass floating at the bottom. This matters for your brain because chronically elevated blood sugar is one of the most potent accelerators of cognitive decline. Alzheimer's is now sometimes called type 3 diabetes in research circles because of the connection between insulin resistance and neurodegeneration. Acetic acid, the primary compound in vinegar, slows gastric emptying and improves post-meal insulin sensitivity, blunting the blood sugar spike. Every spike you blunt reduces glycation damage and the inflammatory cascade destroying your neurons. In the 1800s, apple cider vinegar was in every farmhouse pantry. 1 tablespoon in a glass of water, 15 minutes before your two largest meals. That timing is crucial. You need it in your stomach before the food arrives. Start with 1 teaspoon if the taste is strong. Now let me tell you about someone. I'll call her Margaret, 71 years old, retired school teacher from a small town outside of Columbus, Ohio, 32 years in the classroom, sharp as a tack her whole career. Her daughter brought her to a health consultation because Margaret had been forgetting words. Not occasionally, the way we all do, but in the middle of sentences. She'd be telling a story about one of her grandchildren, and the word she needed would simply vanish. She'd stand there with her mouth open, searching the air in front of her, embarrassed, and someone else would have to finish the thought for her. It was happening more and more. Her doctor ran some basic tests and told her it was probably age-related cognitive decline, and there wasn't much to do about it. That scared her more than the forgetting itself, the idea that nothing could be done, that she just had to sit there and watch herself disappear. Her blood work told a different story. Fasting glucose was 118, solidly pre-diabetic. Vitamin D was 19, well below the minimum threshold of 30. B12 was in that low normal gray zone where many people already have symptoms, but the lab report says normal. Her CRP, a key marker of systemic inflammation, was clearly elevated. We didn't touch her medications. We didn't ask her to do anything radical or expensive. We added bone broth every morning, sardines 3 times a week, steel-cut oats with grated beet, chopped rosemary, and walnuts for breakfast, golden milk before bed, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before lunch and dinner, fermented cod liver oil with breakfast, a big serving of cooked greens with dinner every evening. Her doctor was on board and monitored her labs every 6 weeks. After 3 months, her fasting glucose had dropped to 101. Her vitamin D climbed to 42. Her B12 was solidly in range. Her CRP had come down meaningfully. And Margaret called her daughter one Sunday night and said that for the first time in over a year, she'd gotten through an entire Sunday dinner conversation, 3 hours with the whole family, without losing a single word. Not one. She wasn't cured. I want to be very clear about that. That's not how this works. But the trajectory changed. Instead of declining month after month, she was rebuilding. And that's what these foods do. They don't perform miracles. They give your brain the raw materials it needs to repair itself, slowly, quietly, meal after meal after meal. Before I give you your action plan, I need to say this clearly. If you take any medication, especially blood thinners like warfarin, blood sugar medications like metformin or insulin, or blood pressure medications, do not change anything without your doctor's involvement. Turmeric can thin the blood. Leafy greens are high in vitamin K, which affects clotting. Apple cider vinegar can lower blood sugar, which is great unless you're already on medication that does the same thing. These foods are powerful, and that's exactly why you need your doctor involved. Bring this list to your next appointment. Here's what all 12 foods have in common. They do 3 things quietly, meal after meal. They lower neuroinflammation driven by microglial overactivation. They stabilize blood sugar and improve insulin sensitivity, protecting neurons from glycation damage. And they feed your gut microbiome with the fermented foods, fibers, and polyphenols it needs to send the right signals up the vagus nerve instead of the wrong ones. Your great-grandmother didn't know these words, but she knew that when you ate from the garden and the farm and the cellar, people stayed well, people stayed sharp, people remembered. Here's your plan. Step 1, make bone broth this weekend and drink a cup every morning. Step 2, buy sardines and raw sauerkraut and eat both 3 to 4 times a week. Step 3, switch breakfast to steel-cut oats with walnuts, grated beet, and rosemary. Step 4, make golden milk your bedtime ritual every night. Step 5, take 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in water before lunch and dinner starting today. You don't need all 12 perfectly from day 1. Start with 3 or 4. Build the habit. Add more as you go. Consistency over intensity. Your brain didn't get into trouble overnight and it won't recover overnight, but it will respond. Next week, I'm going to walk you through the 5 blood tests that can predict cognitive decline up to 10 years before symptoms appear. The ones almost no doctor orders during a routine physical, and exactly what numbers you should be looking for. If you want to catch this early, make sure you're subscribed and that the bell is on. I'm Dr. William, and I'll see you in the next one.